Hello, I'm Pocholo Concepcion. Welcome to Wazzup. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Today we're going to talk to a multi-talented artist. He practically grew up in the theater and he's into a lot of things. Let's find out more. What's up with Jamie Wilson? Jamie.
Hey, Poch, how are you doing?
Good, good, good.
Musta?
You look good.
Thank you. Thank you. So do you.
I missed the show that you organized, the tribute to Jun Lupito. We're gonna talk about that later, but first I want you to tell our viewers how you got into, your family. You come from a family of performing artists.
Yeah.
Paano ka napunta sa theater?
Well, I started when I was 7 years old. Nag-theater workshop yung Repertory Philippines.
Yes.
And my mom was working with the repertory as part of audience development. And then it started out as a way to keep the kids together for the summer. So imbes na summer camp, mag-summer workshop kayo sa rep. And I fell in love with it. And then after the workshop, I got cast in Pippin. This was in 1980. That was my first play with Coco Laurel, Joy Virata, and Changudo. And I fell in love, and it's been my life ever since. And of course, my dad's an actor, primarily.
Yes.
But he started out on the stage, but then he transitioned to film and television. So that was a very helpful guiding factor when it was apparent na lahat kami, we fell in love with theater. So yung dad ko ang nagbibigay sa amin ng advice.
Okay.
Anong klaseng buhay yan?
Okay. So, mom and dad, Tita Terry and Johnny Wilson were encouraging you, your siblings, at the same time may advice. Oo. Na huwag pabayaan ng pag-aaral, ganun ba?
Yes, yan ang condition namin when we were kids. We had to have good grades or else we couldn't be in a play. So we always had to make pakita report cards. Kung medyo bumababa yung grades ko, hindi ako pwede. So yun yung condition. We had to keep our grades up.
So, when I first saw you running around the rep office in Land Bank, ano yun? You were doing good.
My grades were still good kasi grade school, okay pa yung grades ko. High school, medyo, when girls and rock and roll start coming in, medyo nakaka-distract na.
Okay. I'm curious, after high school, San Agustin, right?
Yes.
What happened? Did you take up
No, I did
course?
not. I did not go into college. I actually did not graduate high school. I got kicked out of San Agustin because I was, behaving badly. I went to JASMS for a while, and I just realized that being in an organized form of education, when I had so much energy and ideas and things I wanted to do, organized education, sitting down in a classroom, learning something I don't really want to learn or was not particularly interested in, wasn't for me.
Okay.
So eventually, when my parents found out that I was just cutting class all the time, they said, so what do you want to do, Jamie? And I said, I want to go into this full time. So that's when I went into theater and events full time. I started doing technicals also, lighting, sounds, production work, because yan talaga yung hilig ko eh. Para sa akin, I didn't feel like I had a good enough reason to stay in school if it's just for that piece of paper. That wasn't a good enough reason for me. So, and I wasn't learning what I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to design lighting. I wanted to learn how to design sounds or create soundscapes. I wanted to be a better actor. And I thought that I could do better. And definitely it would have been more fun, and it was more fun. Being actually, in the field itself, in the industries mismo. So, doon ako pumunta. I was just going to UP because I knew people who were there and I was just hanging out. Natuto akong uminom kasama ng UP Mountaineers tsaka UP Fine Arts.
Okay.
And I just basically hung around UP. A lot of people thought I went to UP, but I actually did not.
Okay. Not even enrolled in
I wasn't even enrolled.
in one class or something like...
No, I was sitting in with Agnes Arellano's class in Fine Arts.
Okay.
And it took her a while to realize na hindi ako enrolled.
Okay.
Pero by that time, ginagawa ko yung mga plates ko and all that. Sabi niya, sige, okay, ito yung path mo, okay, sige. naging kaibigan na rin kami. Di
All
ba?
right.
So
So
it's a very unorthodox path that I took. But
mhm.
I think I'm a learner kasi by doing it, not by theoretical. A classroom is the most boring place for me.
Mhm.
I'm very kinesthetic, so I have to be actually doing it.
Okay.
And that's how I learn.
All right. So it wasn't all rep pala.
No,
Although are
no,
you
no.
learning from the industry outside?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my the foundation of my education was from rep. Basically, because when I was younger, there's not a lot of roles for kids.
Yes.
So, kung walang role para sa bata sa seasons nila, kasi they were doing 2 seasons a year,
Yes.
then, punta ako sa ilaw, o marunong ka mag-handle ng spotlight, or mag-board operator ka, or mag-sounds ka. Yung
Yes.
panahon na yon, open reel pa. Natuto ako sa open reel into cassette to
Yes.
eventually became the digital. Nag-front of house ako, nagbenta ako ng programs.
Y-
Nag-crew ako, nag-stage manager ako. Nag-wardrobe ako, nag-costumes ako, which I don't like. So I'm never doing that again. So I learned how to do things on the job,
yes.
basically.
Uh-huh.
Being taught by some amazing people. Like just helping Miguel Faustman build the set that he designed was a very good education. Learning stage management from Dodo Lim,
Yes.
learning production management, learning how to do front of house, how to handle tickets and reservations, etc., etc. I learned from some amazing people who actually took the time to teach me and to train me how to do it. So I'm very lucky in that sense because parang naging mentorship ang
Yes.
education.
Mm-mm.
And then when I shifted to the industry, mga live events, sila Evelyn Bosch, sila Dennis Santa Maria, they were doing the bigger concerts and festivals. So it was quite interesting when you take that foundation of theater training and you go into another show like a rock concert or a pop concert
Mm-hmm.
or dealing with international acts. The foundation I had from rep was good enough to see me through. Was actually excellent in seeing me through because you had that work ethic was already there, your professionalism was already there, your sense of being early instead of being on time,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that the show must go on. Naka-ingrain na yan sa akin nung bata pa ako. So
Tama.
transitioning into the live events industry was actually uh, not that big a transition. It's just that the show was different. It wasn't a musical play or it wasn't a straight play. It was a concert. So, pwede pala uminom. Di ba?
In other words, hands-on.
Hands-on
Education
lahat.
sa rep. Tama. Oo.
Yes.
And you found
Hands-on
it
lahat.
quite easy transitioning.
Yes.
Oo. How did you get into music? I remember you listening to Juan de la Cruz when you were in grade school.
Yes. Music, I started out with punk, mainly through the influence of my cousin, who was my source of all the cassettes, from Kumela, and Twisted Red Cross.
Ay, talaga? Oo.
Nakikinig kami he's the one that turned me on to WXB 102,
All right.
before. And basically, I started listening to punk. After musical theater, I started listening to punk because it fed all the aggression of my youthful years. And then I discovered Pinoy rock, Juan de la Cruz, that compilation of that volume 1. Pinoy rock hits of with Sampaguita was there, Mike Hanopol was there, Juan de la Cruz. I started listening to that, but I didn't really fall in love. I fell deeply in love when I discovered The Cure and then The Doors. Yung the band The Cure was the first band I completed my album collection on cassette.
Uh-huh.
Talagang I wanted more. That was the first time I really felt na kailangan kong pakinggan lahat ng mga kanta nila. So naghunting ako sa lahat ng record bars dito sa Manila. At nahanap ko, na kompleto ko, yung collection ko, of all places, yung record bar sa lumang Unimart. Kasi wala masyadong pupunta sa record bar doon.
Okay.
So kompleto sila ng The Cure.
Okay.
So yun ang unang nakompleto ko. And then The Doors, I fell in love with The Doors. And that was the first time, I was listening to Led Zepp, all these higher voice singers.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And when I fell in love with The Doors because not only did I fall in love with Jim Morrison's poetry and his imagery, but it was something I could actually sing because I'm a baritone. So I said, hey man,
Oh,
I can sing along. Kasi syempre, hindi ko naman maabot si Robert Plant eh.
okay. Yeah.
Di ba? Hindi
Mm-mm.
ko yung maabot. Tapos yung Beatles naman, they were too, for me, the Beatles were too goody-goody. I needed something edgy. You know,
Yeah.
if you know, so basically in the musical canon of classic rock, you have the good boys of rock and roll, which is the Beatles, the bad boys of rock and roll, which is the Rolling Stones,
Stones.
and the weird boys of rock and roll, which is the Doors. I fell in love with the weird boys of rock and roll.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then through that, eventually, I started listening to everybody else. And in fact, it was the Doors that led me to, it was knowing the Doors, the music of the Doors, that led me to my first jamming experience in Fire and Rain back in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
when our friend Eddie Rocha, who ran the place, would have bands there like Runaway Boys, Coco Jam. And
Okay.
on one particular night, he dared me, oh, Jamie, I heard you sing. I dare you, go up on stage with that band. And it was Coco Jam. And I
Ah.
had been watching them a few times. I love them, mostly reggae, di ba?
Mm.
So I get up on stage and I'm meeting Rolly Maligad for the first time. And Jun Lupito, Rico Velez, Bosho.
Ah.
This
Okay.
was the first group of musicians that I ever jammed with. Jun Lupito was also there.
Okay.
And syempre, tanong ni Rolly, kakanta ka daw, anong kaya mong kantahin? Sabi ko, anything by the Doors.
Uh-huh.
So one song led to 3 songs, 4 songs, and that was the first time I had been on stage singing with a live band. And I was very spoiled also, just like my theater education. Yung education ko tungkol sa rock and roll came via Rolly and Bosho and Rico Velez and Jun Lupito. Yan yung unang jam ko ever. And I said, that's what I fell in love with that. Sabi ko, shit, I need to get a band together.
Okay.
I need to do more of this. You know? Kasi tignan mo naman, I mean, these are amazing players. These are legends of Pinoy rock.
Mm.
And the irony is, I had no idea they were legends. They were just a
Okay.
band there that night. They were really cool people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we got along. And only later on, after finding out, who they were,
Mm-hmm.
after hanging out with them, only then did I realize, ang spoiled ko pala.
Oo, grabe
Yung
ka.
mga kaibigan ko, mga legends.
Oo.
Pero yung maganda doon is, naging kaibigan ko muna.
Oo
So
nga.
that's where I'm lucky in that sense. I'm very,
Oo.
very blessed
Oo.
to have had that. And then through meeting them, I developed a deep appreciation for reggae. I had not even heard of Bob Marley before Coco Jam. Jun Lupito turned me on to the Rolling Stones,
Mm-hmm.
and that began a lifelong obsession with the Rolling Stones as well.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, digging deeper into the music and stories of Pinoy rock. Through them, I met, Alex Cruz, Anak Bayan. I met Pepe. I became friends with Pepe. It was quite an interesting journey because, I was the young kid there, wide-eyed, but then I really was there just for basically to hang out and have a good time. And, the reward was na I could jam a few songs.
Okay. When I saw you at the Verve Room in
Mm.
Malate,
Mm.
you were singing on stage and you had, I think, black nail polish. May banda ka na ba?
Yes.
Okay.
So nagtayo ako ng banda nun. I fell in love also with poetry and spoken word.
Okay.
So I put together a band called Jam Food Technology and the Heavy Dream Program. Jam Food Technology would be the music, and the Heavy Dream Program would be the visual element. So we had slide projectors, not digital slide projectors, but physical slides manipulated by an artist. His name is Dennis Lagdameo.
Dennis, your cousin.
So yeah, my cousin. So he would be the one projecting stuff on us. It was like sort of like the Velvet Underground at the Andy Warhol warehouse kind of feel,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And the spoken word element. The whole point of the band was to be improvisational. So
Alright.
in that sense, it had its roots in jazz, at least in my world, right? It had its roots in jazz, and the whole point was not to rehearse. So I would get a whole bunch of musicians together, or players together, depende sa gig or depending sa theme ng gabi. So I was the writer of this. So and I would be performing also. So I would basically give the band or whoever was playing with me that night a theme for the night. So tonight it's all about relationships, or tonight it's all about sex, or tonight it's all about play me the sound of traffic, you know. And we would improvise, and the spoken word also would be based on the improvisations of the musicians. So it was quite an interesting, the heady old Malate Bohemian days.
Oo,
It
yeah.
the vibe was like that. And of course, leather pants, black nail polish, eyeliner, you know.
Sama-sama na.
Sama-sama na lahat. All in na, pare. All in.
Wow, interesting. How long did that last, that period?
Oh, that was quite a few years also. Until siguro the late 90s, early 2000s. And then I said, you can't I put it on hiatus, especially the spoken word part, because basically I feel like as a writer, I can't write if I'm not living new experiences. Then there's nothing to write about. So I focused on living new experiences, and occasionally would come back to do to spoken word things. There is an interest now. Spoken word now is an actual proper genre. Back then in the 90s, nobody knew what the fuck we were doing. Sorry, nobody knew what the hell we were doing.
Okay.
Basically, now there's a whole genre of spoken word artists now, and I've been seeing some of them. And we're contemplating on maybe coming back and doing a few gigs just to see if we have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult kasi to perform something like that if you have nothing really to say.
Oh, I think Lourdes de Vera is into that.
Yes, yeah. Lourdes and I encountered each other in Verve, actually, in the 90s. We had a back-to-back gig. And then he went on to release albums, and, we remained underground.
All right.
I love being underground. I love being underground.
Okay. What's up? We'll be back with Jamie Wilson after a short break.
With Globe, our steps can lead us to millions of doors opening.
Mga katribu, tara na't makiisa at matuto sa mga public service programs hatid ng Kalingang Katribu. Tuwing Lunes, nandyan ang usapang business na magbibigay tips at inspirasyon sa mga aspiring entrepreneurs kasama si Vernon Velasco. Tuwing Miyerkules, usapang pangkulusugan naman ang tatalakayin ni Miss Cory Quirino sa Health and Wellness. At tuwing Biyernes naman, kung legal advice ang kailangan mo, sagot ka na ng Legal Diaries kasama si Elmer Navarro Manuel at mga guest lawyers. Lahat ng niya mapapanood tuwing alas 3:30 ng hapon sa Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube. Ang Daily Tribune may digital shows na din. Dahil sa mas lumalaki at mas lumalakas nating tribu, handog sa inyo ng Daily Tribune ang mga programang magbibigay buhay araw-araw. Be informed at mag-good vibes tuwing umaga sa programang Gising Na. Be updated sa news and happenings sa Tribune News on Cue. Mas kilalanin pa natin ang mga paborito nyong atleta sa programang The Athletes Tribune. Alamin ang latest entertainment sa programang Wazzup. Ma-inspire sa mga kwentong hatid ng Perfect. Search lang ang Daily Tribune sa inyong Facebook at Tribune Now on YouTube. See you there, mga katribu! Mga impormasyong direktang makukuha mula sa sources at diretsahang usapan. Yan ang ating daming sa inyo sa programang Straight Talk. Samahan nyo kami sa makabuluhang talakayan live tuwing Martes alas 10 ng umaga sa official Facebook page ng Daily Tribune at Tribune Now on YouTube. Mapalutong bahay man o sumptuous meal for a special occasion,
Welcome back to What's Up with Jamie Wilson, multi-talented performing artist, theater actor, musician, among other things. And then, Jamie, what happened? You went back to rep. You went back doing plays. In
Yeah,
the 2000s?
I went back to doing I had a corporate stint for a while because basically, the thing with learning on the job, learning via being hands-on and on the job, and being in the industry for so long, I eventually found myself taking it for granted. So when I started taking it for granted, basically I wasn't getting any work anymore in theater because I didn't, from being given lead roles in musicals and all that, parang para sa akin normal yun you know. So I started taking it for granted, and unfortunately, as with any craft, as soon as you start taking it for granted, the craft takes you for granted. So nabangko ako from theater.
Okay.
So nag-corporate ako for a while. I cleaned up my act. I changed my whole perspective in life. Instead of taking it for granted, I formed a deep appreciation and thankfulness and gratitude for it. I went back to full time theater in 2012. I risked everything by, I would do one play maybe a year
Uh-huh.
until I said, I think I'm ready to go back full time, give it a shot
But
and see what happens.
what corporate job were you talking
Um,
about?
I was a trainer for a company called Excel Asia. We would help people get jobs by training them to pass job interviews. I would train people in customer service. I would train managers and CEOs
Mm.
about soft skills, communication skills, which was sakto because I'm, coming from theater.
Bagay din.
So parang swak din, parang nagpo-perform ka din. But
Oo.
it was quite fulfilling because I think if I'm not mistaken, I've helped more than 2,000 people get jobs
Wow.
in the corporate world. Yeah. And it was quite fulfilling because eventually, these people will get back to me, and I actually encountered one recently, about a few weeks ago, where she was my student, and she's now she's one of the leaders, a group of managers in a multinational company
Wow.
here in the Philippines. And then she remembers me. She's like, Jamie, I was your student in Excel Asia. And I'm like, oh my God, and you're here. That's fantastic.
Uh-huh.
So, I would like to think that somehow I helped change lives in a very concrete way. And at the same time, when you go into corporate, forming the discipline again of, the 9 to 5,
Yes.
of being responsible for people, and also learning what I miss. So I really missed doing theater when I was in corporate. So eventually, after doing one play a year, I said, kulang to. I need to go back. So let's, try to give it a shot.
Mhm.
And in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, I had to fight my way back to get into theater from production again
Like
to
how?
being well. The first one basically was Peter Pan with Sam Concepcion. They needed a flying director. So sila Mencho Lauchenko and Jaime Del Mundo reached out to me and Jamie. We know you're a technical director. Will you be able to be a flying director? Because Peter Pan, they fly.
Okay. Yeah.
There is an international guy coming in from Las Vegas. So can you be the local counterpart of that guy? So I said, yeah, sure, why not? So I was behind the scenes, making sure people were safe, following all the safety protocols for the flying, doing the training, etc., etc. And then one day, casually, I heard there were auditions for Jekyll and Hyde for Repertory Philippines.
Uh-huh.
And that Junix Inocean, a good friend,
Mhm.
was coming back from London to be in Jekyll and Hyde. So I said, I'd love to be on stage with Junix in some way or somehow.
Mhm.
So I asked, so you need more men? So I asked Elementary, can I audition for you? And I did. So then began the journey of proving myself that I was, capable, I was professional, that I appreciated what I was doing. And somehow that paid off because I went into Atlantis also to do Rock of Ages
Yes.
in 2012. And then I started getting booked. So I would be doing maybe 5 or 6 productions, theater productions in a year. And the only way it stopped was because COVID happened. So I was
Okay.
quite lucky that I was able to come back. The industry welcomed me back, but it was also because I changed my attitude towards it.
Mhm.
You can't take the things you love to do for granted.
Okay, that's a
So
picture of you and Menchu. Tell us about
yeah.
doing Filipino musicals like Huling El Bimbo.
Oh my God, that's my first ever original Filipino musical. And it's the first time I've ever had to do Tagalog on stage because I usually do English
English.
plays. So it was quite a different process in doing that. But what's interesting about doing Ang Huling El Bimbo is that in the beginning of the script, when I auditioned, when it was announced pa lang, I asked the director, I have to be part of this. Please allow me to audition for you. Pero hindi ako available sa audition day. Sabi ko, pwede ba ako mag-send ng video? Diba? Sabi niya, sige lang, Jamie, go. So I made it to the final casting, and then we ended up in the first reading. And the scope of my role as Arturo Banlao, in the first version of the script that we read on that day, was I was just the ROTC teacher. I was just the commandant.
Okay.
Yan yung unang version. And then so Dexter, our director, said, okay, we have Jamie here. Let's make him lang the kontrabida. So he approached me, Jamie, I'm going to make you into the social commentary of this show. You're going to be the kontrabida of this show. I'm going to make you into the social commentary about the EJ case and the trap of politicians. You're going to be the symbol of that. And I'm like, binabasa ko yung script. Direct, wala yun sa script. Sabi niya, it's okay, we'll workshop it na lang. We'll write it as we go along. So, nung nag-open yung El Bimbo, that is the product of a collaboration of Ding Dong Novenario, who wrote it, Floy, also, Quintos helped, Dexter Santos, who directed it, and Mike Salomon had to figure out where to put me vocally within the songs also. Because all of a sudden, hindi lang ako yung commandant. Naging kontrabida na ako for the entire show. So it was quite interesting when we were trying to figure out the role. The sense of collaboration was galing kasi every day may bagong eksena or mag-workshop kami ng bagong eksena. He was trying to figure out kung politician ako, ano yung ranko ko, mayor ba ako? Sabi ko, may isang napaka-integral na scene that takes place in the presinto. Sabi ko, Direct Dexter, kung mayor ako, hindi ako pupunta sa presinto eh. Sila yung pupunta sa akin. So baka pwede konsehal. Kasi konsehal, di ba, pwedeng pumunta, pwedeng tumawid eh. Pero kung level ka na ng mayor or vice mayor, sila yung pupunta sa'yo. Di ba?
Okay.
So yung mga input kong ganon, ganyan. So sabi niya, okay, we'll put you in a polo barong. Di ba? We'll put you in slacks. Pero dapat may silhouette ka ng politician. Sabi ko, clutch bag. Di ba? Kuhang-kuha mo na. Pagpasok mo pa lang sa stage, may hawak kang clutch bag. Parang alam mo na, di ba? Di ba? Visually, alam mo na yung character. So sabi ni Direct Dexter, sige, magpapahanap ako ng clutch bag para sa'yo. Sabi ko, hindi, may clutch bag ako. Ha? So yung gamit ko all throughout the whole El Bimbo run is actually my father's clutch bag.
Okay.
So parang yan yung tribute ko kay Daddy. Kung naging evil siya na politician, because he's a very well-loved politician.
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor, and then he eventually became councilor also.
Okay.
So that was my tribute to my dad if he was evil.
Okay.
So yan yung konting anecdote. Tapos yung nung nagka-alternate na ako sa second run with si Tad Tadyawan, I had alternates already because my schedules were crazy. Siyempre, tuloy pa rin yung clutch bag, yung symbol ni Banlaw, yung clutch bag.
Okay.
Pinahiram ko. Pero bumalik din sa akin, siyempre.
Okay. And then, kung ganyan pala nanganak yung script dahil sa'yo, nagkaroon din ng show eh. Di ba na ikaw ang nag-direct? Tell us about it.
Okay, I directed, well, if it's El Bimbo we're talking about,
yes.
I directed the, Eli Buendia loved the show so much.
Okay.
No, so he wanted to somehow be on the same stage as the El Bimbo cast. And we had to figure out a story.
Okay.
So that's when I directed Eli Buendia and Night at the Theater, where we incorporated the world. We basically put Eli Buendia into the world of Ang Huling El Bimbo. Because if you're familiar with the story of Ang Huling El Bimbo, yung tatlong barkada
yes.
na bata, na lalaki, di ba? They're in college together. De facto UP, di ba? Parang ganon. And if you look at them, yung isa, negosyante, spoiled brat, yung isa, filmmaker, yung isa, galing sa probinsya, bakit nagka-leche-leche yung barkadahan nila? Sabi ko, kasi walang musikero sa barkada eh. Kailangan mo ng musikero para mabalanse yung buhay mo. Di ba? Sa lahat ng barkada, there's always that one guy who can play the guitar.
Okay.
And he is he's the reminder that yes, you can go into corporate, yes, you can think about your career, but being friends with a musician is always a stabilizing factor because you basically know what you're living life for in terms of enjoyment of the barkada, of music. You know what I mean? So it's a grounding factor.
Okay.
So I made Ellie the fourth barkada in the Ang Huling El Bimbo world.
Okay.
So we incorporated Ellie's concert, tapos parang magpa-flashback si Ellie. Tapos he would find himself in the dorm room, tapos papasok yung tatlong barkada from El Bimbo. So parang may flashback, quantum leap, and game factor. And then, I didn't make it tragic anymore kasi walang tragedy nangyari kasi I kept the story happy because basically, may pang-apat na barkada na sila eh. So, si Chadeli biglang nagkaroon ng love life kasi sinabi ko, tumutugtog sila ni Toy Adriano. Sabi ko ni Toy, can I have you act? So, Ellie was acting and dancing, doing
Talaga?
choreography.
Okay.
Yeah, man. He learned the choreography for pare ko, but then in the arreglo of the musical, not his arreglo. It's
Yes.
quite exciting to see this crossover happen of Ellie being in the world of Ang Huling El Bimbo. But Ellie's band was also there. So that's sila Audrey Dionisio, sila Pat Sarabia, si Nitoy Adriano. So sabi ko, Nitoy, can I put you in one scene? Sabi niya, para saan? Sige, Jamie, pero anong gagawin ko? Wala, makikipag-flirt ka lang kay Chadeli, played by Sheila Francisco.
Okay.
So sinet up namin, di ba, sa El Bimbo the Musical, walang love life si Chadeli.
Yes.
Di ba? Yung sa Ellie Buendia Night at the Theater, biglang nagkaroon ng love life. Kasi si Nitoy Adriano, nakakabit yan ng lapel, pina-acting ko pa. Si Nitoy. Pina-charm. So, yung kwento is, pumasok sila sa Toyangs, yung karinderya ni yung tindahan ni Chadeli, and kay ni Ellie si Nitoy, so binaon ni Nitoy, tapos introduce sila, tapos biglang nagka-love life.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So
So you really, talagang pinagtripan mo, gumawa ka ng storya.
Gumawa
galing,
ng storya, in-adjust namin yung storya, and then, we were all, it was so well received, we did a repeat.
Yes.
And that was, I think, one of the last shows I did before the lockdown happened.
Before the lockdown.
Oo.
Okay, that's also very interesting, what you did in the lockdown, during the lockdown. We'll talk about it after a short break.
Ang Daily Tribune may digital shows na din. Dahil sa mas lumalaki at mas lumalakas nating tribu, handog sa inyo ng Daily Tribune ang mga programang magbibigay buhay araw-araw. Be informed at mag-good vibes tuwing umaga sa programang Gising Na. Be updated sa news and happenings sa Tribune News on Cue. Mas kilalanin pa natin ang mga paborito nyong atleta sa programang The Athletes Tribune. Alamin ang latest entertainment sa programang Wazzup. Ma-inspire sa mga kwentong hatid ng Perfect. Search lang ang Daily Tribune sa inyong Facebook at Tribune Now on YouTube. See you there, mga katribu! Fun and inspiring na kwentuhan? Sagot na yan ang programang Spotlight ng Daily Tribune. Makipagkwentuhan at kilalanin ng iba't ibang personalidad na kilala sa kani-kanilang larangan. Manood at makinig sa mga inspiring stories na kanilang ibabahagi kasama si Nina Ventura.
Alright, welcome back to Wazzup with Jamie Wilson. A very interesting conversation of his journey, and then the lockdown happened. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the lockdown was tough. I mean, I was booked the whole year. I was set to do...
Whoops. Sa kanya? We'll be right back after...
Magandang araw mga katribu! Narito na ang mga makakasama nyo tuwing umaga sa programang Gising Na. Roy Pelovelo, Atty. Lia Badillo Crisostomo, Vernon Velasco, Kim Sancha at Chert Balagtas. Abangan ang programang Gising Na sa Facebook page ng Daily Tribune.
Ilabas na ang mainit na kape at samahan kami sa inyong pag-almusal, mga katribo.
Simulan natin ang bawat umaga with good vibes sa mga informative and recreational segments ng aming programa.
Maaari niyo rin ibahagi sa amin ang inyong opinion via Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now sa YouTube.
Makichika na rin sa latest showbiz happenings, mga katribo.
Kaya naman, magsama-sama po tayo sa...
Gising Na!
Fun and inspiring na kwentuhan? Sagot na yan ang programang Spotlight ng Daily Tribune. Makipagkwentuhan at kilalanin ng iba't ibang personalidad na kilala sa kani-kanilang larangan. Manood at makinig sa mga inspiring stories na kanilang ibabahagi kasama si Nina Ventura at Jojo Silvestre. Be ready ng mamangha at matuwa every Thursday alas 2 ng hapon dito lang sa Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now on YouTube.
Sorry about that.
We're back. What's up?
We're back.
With Jamie Wilson. So, you were saying you were booked the whole year when the pandemic hit and the
Yeah.
lockdown started. Yeah.
And then all the shows got canceled. We didn't know what was going to happen with our lives. Kala natin mga 2 weeks lang, 3 weeks. But then when it was obvious that it was going to be longer than that, everything went away. And thankfully, I was able to transition quite well into being a safety officer, a licensed safety officer through the FDCP, the Film Development Council of the Philippines, and the Department of Labor and Employment. I've always done safety as part of my mandate as a technical director, as a stage manager, even as an AD. Safety has always been part of my mandate. So it wasn't a very difficult transition. It was just I had to get trained, I had to get certified. And eventually, that's when I started falling in love with the film and television industry. It was quite interesting to be there and watch the creation of these. I did films, music videos, hybrid events, even teleseries. And it was quite interesting to see. I never appreciated because of the process of filming and television, shooting out of sequence and without a lot of rehearsals.
Tagal.
I didn't really appreciate it as an actor.
Okay.
But since I was not there in the capacity as an actor, I was there as a safety officer. I was able to step back, and take a look at how much preparation and effort and creativity goes into, maybe 2 minutes of a 2 minute scene that you see on the frame. It takes a whole army to put that together. So I actually fell in love with the process and changed my mind about doing television and film. And thankfully, I've also been able to get some projects there. But, the lockdown was very difficult, especially in the first few months where you basically can't leave the house.
Yeah.
So that's when I started, broadcasting on Facebook Live.
Yes.
I did a couple of podcasts. One was called Welcome to the Story So Far,
Yeah.
which is basically my proof of life, which I would be alone in my room under red light, talking about my day and trying to sort of give people hope to whoever would be listening that we can get through this together. And then I got in touch with Sila Ellie and Audrey Junicio, who's my producer in Offshore Music, and said, hey, let's do another show where I interview musicians and artists. Since nobody's doing anything now, there's no gigs.
Yeah.
It would be great to be able to talk to them. And that's how we created On the Rocks, which was tremendously fun because I got to interview artists and musicians and even people who love music that ordinarily we would not even be discussing what we discuss in the show. So it was a way to not just get through the day. I would say it was a way to continue doing what I love to do and also trying to remain sane at the same time because we did not know where the world was going.
Okay. Yeah. Including unexpectedly losing people,
Yes, that's the hardest talaga.
loved ones, and friends, musicians,
Yeah.
which brings us to Jun Lupito.
Yes.
Tell us how you put together this all-star jam. And then we'll take a look at the photos and describe, since hindi namin napanood.
Oo nga.
Describe mo na
Sayang.
lang. Oo.
Poch, you
Okay.
would have had so much fun
Yeah.
if you had made it. Well, basically, when we lost June, we were all trying to cope with the grief. June's been a dear friend for more than 30 years, and he's a huge life influence in me, not just with music, but in my faith, my practice, and the way I am. So that was quite devastating when I heard about it. And of course, a tribute would need music. And in the beginning, me and Stephen Lou were talking with a few people on what kind of tribute can we put up. And I said, it has to be June songs.
Tama.
Because June also loved covering a lot of songs, but then in particular, we in the 90s we had already toured his first album, Bodhisattvas. So we had played those songs live quite a few times. But the second album, Bodhi 3 and MRK, under Offshore Music, was released in 2020 during the pandemic.
Okay.
It was released, so it was never really played with a full band live. So we decided to focus on playing June's songs live in this tribute, just one set of songs. And so I started thinking of people who had a direct connection to June, who would be willing to play. And of course, there's no shortage of that. As you might be able to see from the photos, we had 5 guitars.
Oo nga
We
eh.
had 5 guitars on that stage.
Hindi ba sumabog ang Lacolina?
Hindi naman, kasi alam mo, ang galing nilang 5 kasi marunong silang magbalanse.
O sige, isa-isahin natin yung photos and then describe what was
sige.
happening.
That's Audrey Dionisio playing. She's on guitar also. Previously, we saw Cowboy Santos. We saw Ellie. There's Ellie singing also.
What was he singing? What was Ellie singing?
Ellie sang 2 songs. He sang Lumampas Ka and Royal Beggar from June's second album.
Okay.
That's Manuel Legarda.
Manuel Legarda, of course.
Loved June, big influence. And Manuel actually learned, yung tribute niya kay June is sinipra niya yung solo ni June sa Pure Souls.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
He didn't just do just any solo. He did June solo. Ito yung sabi niya, kailangan ko gawin yan. So
Husay.
yan yung ambag niya.
Okay.
Cowboy
Santos,
yeah. Cowboy Santos. We had Ira Cruz also on another guitar. With 5. Yung biggest concern ko is paano tayo makasya? Kasi 5 guitar amps. That takes space. Tapos 5 pedal board. Daming space yan. Diba?
Okay.
We had Pat Sarabia on
Pat
drums.
Sarabia on drums. Where's that?
And Bong Lennon on bass. So the Bong Lennon's from Tropical Depression.
Yes.
So it was quite interesting because we had a mix of old and new. We had a mix of the old guard, which I'm old na apparently. So I'm part of the older guard who were there from the 90s onwards, and then we had new relationships that June had forged to the second album, and that's with sila Ellie, sila Audrey, and sila Pat Sarabia. So it was a good mix. There were more people who wanted to play. We also had Roxy Modesto on saxophone.
Saxophone, yeah.
Oo.
Teka, what did you sing?
I sang. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna run down the set list. I have it here.
Sige.
Okay, so our set list, it's a short set list lang. Basically, what was rehearsable kasi everybody's schedules were crazy. So we couldn't do the whole album, no. So we started out with Sagala Girl, sang by Stephen Lu. I was doing backup vocals. And then we went into Tanging Sandata. Paul Putian, also tumuod si Paul. Kasi si Paul may tugtog siya sa kabilang side ng poblasyon. So naglagari pa siya. So tumuwid siya. Tapos kinanta niya yung Tanging Sandata, which he also wrote. That's from the second album.
Okay.
I sang, my assigned song was Riverside Blues, which is from the second album.
Second album. Okay.
Yeah. And then Ellie took over with Lumampas Ka from the second album, and then Royal Beggar from the second album. And then Ellie and Audrey played guitar for me singing Moonflowers. So that was the whole suite of the second album. Moonflowers was such a hard song to sing without crying, pare.
Talaga?
Parang yan ang enlightenment song ni June.
Okay.
So it was very prophetic also because the chorus goes like, the last part of the chorus goes, lightning fire burns all my desires as my earthly body longs to see moonflowers. So it was about somebody trying to achieve or transition into the plane of enlightenment. So mahirap kantahin kasi nag-transition si June. Diba? And it was funny during rehearsals to watch 5 guitar players figure out all the guitar parts of June. That was hilarious,
Okay.
And then we went after that. We invited Chikoy Pura to come up to sing Regular Guy. I did backup vocals also for him. And then we took it home with Pure Souls and Rock and Roll ng Bayan. Stephen Lu came up for Rock and Roll ng Bayan. I sang the Pepe Smith part. And we had a great time. Although we were fairly loud. Yung talagang believe talaga ako sa 5 nagigitara kasi they knew how to give way to one another. Who was playing on what, and then they would tone down. Hindi yung sabay-sabay yung 5 gitara todo.
Okay.
They knew when to give way. Ako na ba? Ikaw naman. So ang galing, ang ganda ng balanse namin actually. I was quite surprised because kala ko mababarangay kami.
Okay.
'Di ba? Kasi Sunday.
Oo nga.
Tapos 5 gitara. Residential neighborhood.
Normally, sarado ba ang La Colina pag Sunday?
They're open for dinner, lunch and dinner, but then no bands.
Okay.
Walang bands. it was quite interesting to also, the best part really was the people who showed up. The people who showed up was, a combination also of old and new. Old friends, new friends, people
What?
from the Sokogakkai International, the Buddhist organization that me and June belong to. They showed up
Okay.
also.
Okay.
And it was so nice to go, hopping from table to table and getting new June Lupita stories.
Talaga.
I mean, because I think that's how we stay alive. As long as you have stories going around about you,
Tama.
then you're still around, And ang sarap kasi na nakahanap ako ng mga bagong kwento tungkol kay June. So, syempre, may ambag din ako. May kwento ako tungkol kay June, pero may mga bagong kwento din ako narinig. So, in that sense, ang saya. I really felt his spirit was there with us. Andy Locsin graciously allowed me to put June's old red Fender Stratocaster, his iconic red guitar.
Bakit nasa kanya?
Kasi it was, I think June fell on hard times. It went to Andy Locsin. Andy
Okay.
Locsin loves helping these
Yes.
fellow musicians, and it's in the best hands kasi gitarista din si Andy.
Tama. Okay. So, nasa
So
kanya.
parang siya yung keeper of the faith, di ba? Parang ganon.
Mhm.
And he allowed me to display it in the altar, but it couldn't be played anymore kasi may crack na yung neck. So sabi ko, ilalagay ko lang doon
Oo.
para nandun si June.
Tama. Oo.
Di ba?
Oo.
Kasi ayoko nang ipadala yung ashes niya and all that. Hindi naman to wake tribute.
Tama. It's a
Pero
celebration.
nandun yung, it's a celebration of his life.
What
So
did
the red guitar was there.
Okay, what did Miguel Romero sing?
That was the second set na, the jamming. Si
Jamming.
Babes.
Stones.
Jamming na yon. So yung jamming namin, pumunta kami from the Stones to the Doors to the Beatles.
Mhm.
So si Babes, kinanta niya ata Satisfaction. Ako nag-Roadhouse Blues. Nag-Sympathy for the Devil. This
Lahat na.
usual. Tapos in-ending namin with Crossroads. Kasi paborito din yan si June. So si Cowboy na kumanta at tumugtog nun. So yung second set, yung idea kasi, first set, planado. But then, I had to put it in the spirit of June also na dapat may hindi planado.
Tama.
Sa second set, dami naman musikero doon. Si Tony Bernardo nag-drums. Si Bong Lennon pa rin nag-bass eh. But it was just, we were having so much fun. So the second set was primarily for whoever who was there who wanted to play. If you were willing to go up there and play, then by all means, go. Di ba? Yan na yung jamming portion ng yung second set.
Okay, Jamie, I remember you mentioned when you wrote about June, I want you to say it here. What did you learn from June Lupito?
Okay, so in my years with June Lupito and being in his band, right, June never liked to over-rehearse. He liked to get the essence of the songs, anong ending dito, paano ito mag-uumpisa, paano tayo mag-ending. And if you have the essence of the song, then that is good enough. Especially with live music, especially with rock and roll. It can't be too polished. Because you have to leave. Ang sabi niya, Jamie, you have to leave space for the magic to happen. Kung masyado tayong plakado, kung masyadong polished, parang walang space
Tama.
for something magical to happen. So that served me well because it's true. That doesn't just apply to music or playing a live set. It also applies to your life. You have to leave room for magic to happen to you. But you have to be prepared for when the magic will happen. You have to create the conditions under which to allow the magic to happen. And more often than not, that tribute to June Lupito, magic was happening all night long. Something as basic as the projector. Mali yung kable. Hindi, mali yung projector na dala ko. It was walang HDMI cable. So, yung kableng dala ko, mali din. Pero, nagkataon, may taong may adapter. So, yung slideshow namin, yung last minute na siniset up namin, may tao na. Tapos, uy, mali. Ay, may adapter. Uy, biglang nangyari. That's just a small example of what was happening. Umulan, traffic.
Tama.
Diba? Nahirapan si Bong Lennon para pumunta kasi wala siya kotse. 'Di ba? So nag-commute lang siya. Nahirapan siya. we were all there already. We were supposed to start at 8:30 and ako nasa-stress ako kasi bahista eh. Okay lang kung
Hindi pwedeng
kung
wala.
late,
Oo.
yung isang gitarista pwedeng wala kasi 5 naman yung gitarista natin dito eh. Pero yung kaisa-isang bahista natin was delayed. And sabi ko, well, what can I do? It's the universe. So you have to trust the universe. You have to trust the powers that be. I believe with all my heart that if you have good intentions and noble purpose, a good intention and a noble purpose, the universe will find a way to make it happen. And it may not be how you want it to happen, diba? But then it's how the universe will allow it or make it happen. There were a lot of things as a director. I tend to think about all the factors. But even in theater, I allow space for the magic to happen. I don't like to be too controlling in a sense, because if I am with other creative people as a director, I will use all the creative minds in the room, not just mine. Kasi sayang lang naman eh. Lahat tayo, artist dito. So I would always try to foster a sense of collaboration. And this tribute was a sense of collaboration from everybody, from the musicians to La Colina, who I'm very grateful that they opened their doors to us. It's a collaboration between me and the menu of La Colina. What do I order for the band? What food? What drinks? You know what I mean? And people were just throwing ideas. So it was a collaboration. It was a collective effort. It was just somebody just needed to, kick the door down and start it. And I'm glad that I had so much support and I had so much help and I had so much, not only creative people, but extremely generous people who were willing to give their time and their effort and their talent to do this for June. Because that was the deciding factor. We were all there
For June.
to pay tribute to a great man, to a great musician, and also to honor him and his influence on us.
Nice. Connection, no? You met
No.
Ellie, and Ellie produced June Lupito.
Yeah. Ellie was actually instrumental in getting me and June Lupito back on track.
Oh, okay.
During the pandemic, nag-uusap kami about June's second album. And June and I had parted ways because I found myself in full-time theater. So
Yeah.
matagal na kaming hindi nagsasama ni June.
Oo.
And then me and Ellie reconnected with Ang Huling El Bimbo. And then Ellie was the one who put me and June back together. So that's why my first episode for On the Rocks was June. And it was as if no time had passed. So when the universe talaga is determined
That's a way,
to
no?
put you, it will find a way talaga.
Jamie, looking back, what has life taught you? The theater, music, friends, musicians, what have you learned so far?
I have learned what not to do.
Which is what?
I learn by doing. So I learn primarily from making mistakes. And what I learned to do is to not repeat the same mistakes. I will find a whole new bunch of mistakes to make so that I can learn what not to do. And in learning what not to do, that's how I learned what to do, how to do it, and how to continue doing it. So I'm the king of second chances. I've always been grateful for all the second chances I've been given. But I have learned primarily to appreciate every little artistic endeavor that I have been a part of, because it's such a privilege to be able to sing, to be able to perform, to be able to tell a story in front of people, in front of an audience. To be able to sing is such a joy. I've learned not to take things for granted, because this not everybody enjoys the blessings that I have. I mean, I have the privilege of not just being on one stage, but I'm able to be on several stages. I can be on stage with a rock band. I can be on stage in a musical play. I can be on stage in a straight play. I can be on stage hosting an event. And it's such a privilege to be able to wear a lot of hats. But that journey did not come without making mistakes. And thankfully, I've learned to not repeat the same mistakes. Just make whole new ones.
Okay. What
And
about
don't be afraid to make mistakes.
okay?
Because nobody's perfect. If whenever I meet somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I'm an expert," really, you're an expert. But the world is not perfect. So how can you be perfect if the world itself is imperfect?
We
I
will
think the best thing to do is to be the best that you can be.
we will use your quotes. Ang ganda. What about your parents? What did you learn from Johnny Wilson and Terry? Terry Wilson.
Oh
Did
my
Terry?
God. My dad, I learned integrity. If you're going to give your word to something, then be a man of your word. If you commit to something, whether it be a professional or personal commitment, if you say you're going to show up. And don't just show up at 100%. You know, whether it be something that you are either volunteering for or something that you are being paid for, it demands the same amount of commitment. Whether you're doing it for the beer or kung may talent fee ka. Kung nag-agree ka to show up, show up. From my mother, I learned to laugh. I learned to be generous with my laughter. My mom is the kind of person who hindi yan nagtatanim eh. Hindi yan nagtatanim ng galit. More often than not, she would forget that she's mad at you. And then she'd say hi to you. And then she'd say, "Ay, well, I thought I was mad at you, but well, too late. I said hi na.
Oh,
So let's
yeah.
laugh together." So my mom was like that, you know? And I've learned to be more forgiving, to learn to be more generous, to be more sympathetic and compassionate with people. And that's my mom's heart is what I'm enjoying living with right now. And it really is the return of being generous with your time. People are also generous with you, or the universe will be generous with you as well. I firmly believe in that. And I'm living proof of it because I'm still alive and I'm still doing what I love to do.
Okay. What's up for Jamie Wilson? What any shows coming up?
Shows. Yes, I am currently in the cast of Voltes 5,
Uy,
which is a dream come true.
what's that?
And
Is that
it's
a TV show?
Yes, it's a live action TV show from GMA 7. It was announced in 2019. I've been making legal to get in, and finally, I've been allowed to get in. So I'm in the cast. I can't tell you who I am. I can't. My role has not been announced, but I've been given the clearance to say that I am part of it. It's a live action Voltes 5. Poch, oh my God. My first day on the set, pumasok ako sa Camp Big Falcon, pare umiyak ako. Kasi, pinapanood ko to nung bata ko eh.
Inabutan mo.
When it first came out. So, this is my dream. So,
Okay.
to be, from the 7-year-old Jamie to the 49-year-old Jamie, papasok sa Camp Big Falcon, pare, umiyak ako. Kasi, Camp Big Falcon, pare. Di ba?
Nice.
So, that's the biggest project I have in the works. I'm also
When is that?
consulting.
When is it showing? I mean,
I think it's gonna be airing, I think next year pa, because it's still under, it's still in production. It's currently still in production because naudlot yung production dahil sa pandemic.
okay.
At nahirapan silang to resume shooting kasi the actor playing Little John, the kid, matagal siyang hindi pwedeng mag-shoot eh. Kasi pandemic pa, di ba? Pero ngayon, pwede na. Medyo maluwag na yung alert level 1. So it's
Okay.
still it's still
production.
in production. And then who knows? I'm playing with the Blue Rats. We play around Makati usually. 2 sets of the Blues. I'm helping and I'm consulting for safety for theater, for musical theater to come back. I'm currently consulting for 2 companies. I'm not going to be appearing on stage, but I'm doing what I can to help theater get back on its feet from a safety officer's perspective, and a technical director's perspective. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of things, which is always fun.
Great. One last question.
Yeah.
A message for President-elect Bongbong Marcos. Positive, ah?
All right. It's gonna take all of us to fix the problems we have in our country. It's gonna take all of us working together. So I will be there to support anything that will get our country back on our feet. And if you need to unify people, to unify the country, to unify our leaders, please do not forget to unify people. You need to get their hearts and their souls, to win them. You have to win the hearts and souls of your people. You have to win the love of your people. And that's not the love for the president, but the love for the country. Country first. And if you need any help, if it's for the country, I'm there.
All right, Jamie Wilson, a man, an artist, a human being who's never afraid to make mistakes. More power, man.
Thank you, Poch.
Okay. Thank you. This has been Pocholo Concepcion of Wazzup. Catch us every Tuesday, 2 p.m. on Facebook page of Daily Tribune, and YouTube, Tribune Now. God bless. Stay safe. Thank you.